My name is Henry. Wolfgang, I know that it says Eric probably because that's basically all the seminar is under one name, but then but then but then that's only like just Eric is also one of our analysts. All right, but my name is Henry. Okay, so all right, so let's take a look here, guys. I have already started the recording, I believe. Okay, everything is great. All right, so if you want to learn Elliott Wave, guys, right, the first thing you need to understand, it should be the first screen should be a slide called Elliott Wave Seminar. Stephen, I'm not sure if you is seeing the correct thing. It's only the first slide basically. I just start. All right, so everybody's seeing the same thing, right? It says the first slide, Elliott Wave Seminar, Elliott Wave for beginners, right? Yep. Okay. All right. So the first thing you guys need to learn in Elliott Wave, if you guys want to understand how to read, okay, how to read the charts, as well as, let's say if you want to practice yourself and if you want to label yourself, right, this is the first thing that you got to understand, right? This is what we call the Elliott Wave degree, right? So you got here 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 different degrees in Elliott Wave, right? From grand supercycle, cycle, primary, intermediate, minor, minute, minuet, sub-minuet, right? So you have 9 different degrees, and you notice there that actually they are more or less the same, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? A, B, C, and W, X, Y. Those are the main labels in Elliott Wave. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C, W, X, Y, right? Now, the difference between the different degree is the way you want to label it, right? Now, the grand supercycle, you can see there with double bracket, capital letters, right? Roman number, right? And so on. And then different degrees might have a different color, different, without bracket, one bracket, and so on. Now, the purpose of those differentiation is to be able to tell you what kind of degree are we talking, right? What kind of degree are we talking? So that's why you don't need to memorize all this. Of course, you don't need to memorize. I don't memorize all the. I mean, I do the labeling every single day, but sometimes I don't memorize all of them, right? I sort of kind of, because I do it every day. I sort of memorize a lot of these labels, but then not everything. Sometimes I forgot. I will go back to this chart again. So for you guys who are kind of new, what you can do is print it. You just print this page or this slide, right? And then you stick it. And then when you want to interpret a chart or you want to label it yourself, you just look at this degree and then you start labeling it yourself, okay? So you can see here, Elliott Wave degree. What is Elliott Wave degree? This is it's like an Elliott Wave's language to identify cycles so that the analyst can identify the position of a wave within the overall progress of the market. So the grand supercycle is what we call the highest degree. Now the highest degree, like Jagdish is asking question, please also give the time with each degree. Correct. So the grand supercycle is the biggest degree. So this is typically found in the larger time frame because it is the largest degree, right? So this is typically, when we are talking about grand supercycle and supercycle, usually they are found in the weekly and daily time frame. Okay, weekly and daily time frame will have a lot of this grand supercycle and supercycle degree. And then this cycle in primary, intermediate. Now this is between, let's say daily and 4 hour, right? Daily and 4 hour. Okay, and then the lower the degree, the lower the time frame that you will find it. Now a lot of people who are new might be confused. What are those time frames anyway? What are the differences between time frames and so on? Now think about time frames as well as the degree, which is kind of the same, right? The higher the time frame, the higher the degree usually that you can find when you're trying to label all those movement in the market, right? Think about the time frame, guys. Now, I don't want to do all slides only because I want to be a little bit more interactive, right? And I'll try to speak a little bit fast, guys, because I think we need to finish it by, you know, like 1 hour, within an hour or so. Maybe we got a little bit over time, but I'll try to do it as fast as I can. Think about time frame, guys. I usually think of time frame as like a map. Okay, like if you want to travel somewhere, you need a map, right? You need a map when you want to travel somewhere. Now, the first map that you need, let's say if you want to travel to other countries in other parts of the continents, let's say, then you need a world map, right? World map, because you need to know where that country is located. It's not in the same country, and you need to travel by airplane, so you need a world map. So to figure out, let's say you want to travel to Africa if you're from the UK or US, and vice versa and so on. So you need to see the world map. Where's Africa? Where's the US, right? Because you want to know, okay, I'm going there with an airplane. Now that's a world map. Now world map is the biggest map, right? It has all the map of the earth, so it has all the countries. But then the world map will not have the details, right? You can only see the different countries on earth, but then you will not be able, let's say if you're talking about the US, for example, the world map will not contain all the map of the different states within the US, right? It won't show state in, you know, Florida or you know, California and all those things, right? Because it's too big. The world map is too big to be too detailed in each country, right? So then when you, let's say you want to travel from one country to the next, you need to have a world map. And then after that, what else do you need? You need to have a country map. So let's say you travel to the United States, you need to have a country map of the United States. Now in the country map, what you will find is more detailed information, right? Maybe in the country map will contain information about the different states in the US, right? Different states in the US. Now this information, different states, will not be available in the world map, but it will be available in the country map. Now, where are you going though? I mean, when you say I'm going to the US, well, US is so big. Where are you exactly going? Let's say, okay, I'm going to California. All right, so now you're getting more specific, right? So then you need a state map. Now within one state, you have a lot of cities, right? You have San Francisco, you have Los Angeles, and all those things. So the state map will have all the different cities information, right? Different cities in the same state information that will not otherwise be available when you just look at the country map or the world map, right? And then finally, you will have the city map that is specific. Let's say, okay, I'm going to San Francisco. Then you need a city map. It will tell you all the streets in San Francisco. So this is the most detailed, right? This has the most detailed information and the most specific. And this is like the overall view. It's like the bird's eye view and the bigger view, right? It's like a zoom out view, and then this is the zoom in view going specifically to city map. Now think about this different thing here as your time frame. When you are looking at the weekly or monthly chart, you're basically looking at the world map, right? So when you're looking at the daily chart, that's basically you're looking at the country map, okay? And then when you are looking at a state map, it's like you're looking at the 4-hour chart. And then finally, the most detail here is when you're looking, let's say, at the 1-hour chart. Now, that's it. Each one of them, technically, it should not be contradictory, right? I mean, the San Francisco, I mean, even though you don't see all the details of the streets, but between the state map and the city map, they should not contradict one another, right? It should, like it's like a puzzle. They should correlate to one another, right? So the same way, when you're looking at the chart, don't get confused. When you're looking at the 4-hour chart, what you are doing basically is you're looking at a broader view, a bigger sort of view compared to the 1-hour chart. But the labels when we're talking about the labels in Elliott Wave, the labels in the 1 hour cannot contradict the label in the 4 hour, because they are the same. Like the state map, city map, they should be in the same. Basically, they should not contradict one another, right? Same way when you look at 1 hour chart, they should all sort of fit in within the 4 hour chart, and the 4 hour chart fit in within daily, and daily fit in the weekly and the monthly chart. So then you apply the different degrees. Cannot contradict, yeah, because otherwise, if let's say if you're saying San Francisco, I mean, if the state does not, the 4 hour chart and the 1 hour chart cannot be different to one another. That's what I'm trying to say. Neither. It cannot be different than one another, right? Same thing as the map cannot be different than one another. So when we're talking about the Elliott Wave degree, right, we talked about before that the grand supercycle, let's say grand supercycle and supercycle normally is being found in the weekly, monthly chart, right? Now, and then this one, the lower the time frame, the lower the degree in the Elliott Wave, and therefore you will find different sort of labels here, more common in different time frames. So if we are talking about sub-minuet and minuet, they are commonly found in the 1 hour chart, the lowest time frame. But when we are talking about, let's say, the weekly chart, commonly we will more often find this kind of labels, the supercycle, grand supercycle degree. Okay, guys. So everybody understand so far, guys, about the different degrees? Right. So when you guys try to label yourself, let's say, right? You want to label yourself. Now, how do we make sure that the higher degree will kind of will not contradict or will not be different than the lower degree? The easiest way to do it is you start from the highest degree. Okay, when you want to try to label yourself, 5 to 15 minutes, the same. The lower the time frame, the more details you should put. Now remember, Elliott Wave, there is a concept of fractal. Fractal, it relates to this idea that different degrees. The fractal basically is saying that each wave always consists of smaller waves. Just like the wave that you see on the beach, a big wave always consists of smaller wave. So when I'm talking about, okay, it's a wave A, or it's a wave W, or it's a wave 1, I'm not just talking about one specific wave. Whatever wave that you are talking about, always, if you go down again and go down again, break it down again, it can always be broken down into smaller and smaller and smaller waves. But of course, we need to have a limit as to like how many times do you want to cut the wave. At some point, it doesn't make sense to keep cutting it, right? That's why we are giving 9 different degrees. That's enough. You can go keep cutting it, but then you need to come up with different degrees if you want to go lower and lower. And remember, the lower the time frame you are talking about, the more noise you will find, and the less reliable whatever you're doing. I mean, if you want to trade, the lower the time frame, the more noise you got, and basically the less accurate you will have. That's just common sense. Okay, because it has more oscillations, therefore the more noise. Now, like I said, I want to talk about when you try to label yourself, right? The best way to do it is basically if you are able to figure out the highest degree, which is, let's say, you start with the weekly chart, you label the weekly chart. Now, once you finish with the weekly chart, more or less, you basically are done. You basically are done, because what you are doing then, when you go down on the low time frame, right? All you need to do is what? Is putting in the details of the sub wave that would otherwise not be able to be put on the weekly chart because there's not enough space. Remember, if you're talking about the world map, you cannot put all the different states in the US and cram it in the world map, because that becomes too much information and it doesn't help, right? So all those details, right, it needs to be put in the lower time frame, right, in the lower map. So the same way, when you figure out the world map, when you figure out the weekly chart, then your job is pretty much done, because then you go down to the daily time frame and you just put the details in different waves. So let me give you an example. Let's say go on here. So here we go. This is the chart of the Indian rupee, right? USD INR. So this is US dollars against INR, Indian rupee, right? So let's say, okay, I want to label Indian rupee myself, let's say, right? So how do I do it? Should I start with the 1 hour chart? Should I start with 15 minutes? No, you start with the weekly. Like I said, always start from the highest time frame. So you can get into as high as possible depending on your charting platform, like how far it allows you to see the data, right? So for example, in my charting platform, it allows me to see data all the way to 1975, right? 1975. Now, well, that's when we go. Now that's a different story, Wolfgang. We're gonna go there, right? We're gonna go there. Like Wolfgang has a question: how do I know to label 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C, all this? Now we will talk about that later on. But what I'm trying to say for now is you figure out the weekly chart. Okay, let's say I figure out that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Now whether this is correct or not, that's a different story, right? It is a different story. But let's say this is correct. Let's say this is A. Let's say the entire move here is an A, and then this 3 ways move down is a B. So that means we are in a C, right? This is based on the count that I'm proposing here, of course, right? So I'm labeling this. I look at the weekly chart, I analyze it, and then I decide, okay, maybe this is the count. It could be wrong, of course. Any count can be wrong, and we adjust. But let's assume this is correct. So then that means we are in the wave C right here. Currently, we are in the wave C in the blue degree. And like I said, wave C, each wave always can be split into smaller and smaller waves. So wave C needs to be subdivided in 5 waves in Elliott Wave, but we're going to talk about that later on, so don't worry about it for now. You can see we got this 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. So this is what we are calling for. Basically, once you figure this out, okay, this is the weekly chart from the US dollar INR. All you are doing then is you go to the daily chart, and all this label that you see on the weekly should match with the lower time frame, of course. But the lower time frame, the daily, will not have all this information because the weekly chart is a broader view. So the daily chart is going to be focusing more on the last move, right? On the last move. So let's say if I go down on the daily chart now, you notice that the daily chart here starts with the 2 here and the 3 here. So go back and compare it to the weekly chart. That's the 2, that's the 3. So it matches. That's what I mean. They cannot contradict one another. They cannot be different than one another. So if the daily is 2 here and then this is something else, then that's the chart doesn't make sense, doesn't match. It has to match. Now you can see here the weekly, I cannot cram all the labels here, right? I mean, can I cram all this subdivision in the wave 3 within the weekly chart? I cannot, because that's too much information. Look, this 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, all this detail here, I cannot cram all those things here, right? On the weekly, right? Impossible. Impossible. I cannot, and the purpose of this thing is not to analyze specific instrument, Mutipat. So I'm just providing basic information about Elliott Wave. I'm just using the Indian rupee. So if you guys want me to analyze, a specific instrument like gold, that's beyond the scope of this seminar. Okay, you can always check our service. We have all the instrument covered there. We have 14 days free trial. You can always check it out. But the purpose and the scope of the seminar is really to give you the basic information about Elliott Wave. Now, once you figure this out, 3 and 2, and you cannot cram all the information here, of course. Now you go to the daily, and you just need to put all the details. So if this is 2, this is 3, then this has to be a 5 waves, because that's basically Elliott Wave Theory. The subdivision of the wave 3 has to be 5 waves. So that's why you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You give all the details here. And then here, this wave 4, here is the same as the before here in the weekly chart. All you're doing in the daily is put in the subdivision here. Okay, this is a WXY. We're gonna talk about that. Don't worry about it for now. But what I'm trying to illustrate and let you guys know is, you start with the weekly chart. Once you're finished with it, all you need to do is go down on the lower time frame and you put in all the details, the subdivision. And then if you talk about 4 hour, what am I doing here? 4 hour is nothing more than you just look at the last move and go to the 4 hour. Look, in the 4 hour, you start with an X in the red here, right? X in the red, and then you got W in black. Compare it on the daily chart. That's your X in the red. There's your W in the black. So all we are doing in the 4 hour is you zoom in the last move and you put in all the details. Now I cannot cram all those details here in the daily. It's too many information, right? Too many information if I cram all the labels. So that's what you are doing in the daily. In the lower time frame, what you're doing is nothing more than putting in all the subdivision, right? So you put in the subdivision here, you put in subdivision there, and then now we are in the Y leg here, so that means you put in the subdivision here going lower. Okay, I don't know how I can do that, Mila, but like I said, this is the weekly, the USD INR, and you've seen the 1 and you've seen the 2 and 3 here in the blue, right? So all you're doing the daily is I start with the 2 and the 3, and you're just looking at the subdivision. You're just putting in all the subdivision. That's all you're doing basically. Okay, it has to match with the weekly. So this is 2, this is 3 in blue in the weekly, this is 2, this is your 3, and then the 4 hour is just the last move in the daily. So you have start with the X in red and W in black, go to the 4 hour, that's your X in red, W in black. All you're doing is putting the subdivision. That's it. You're welcome. And then the 1 hour move is nothing more than looking at the last move in the 4 hour. Let's say this last move, or maybe from W, I don't know, I have to check the 1 hour chart to know where we start from, but I'm suspecting this is probably the only thing that we're gonna see in the 1 hour. Let's check out. So this is the 1 hour, and sure enough we start with the X in black. In the 4 hour, this is your X in black. So all you're doing is what in the 1 hour? It's just putting in the details. Now somebody who doesn't know how to read Elliott Wave or how to label and so on, you're looking at the 1 hour chart and tell me, do you know anything about what the pair is going to do here? I mean, of course it says it's going to go down, but then you need to know all the pictures, right? Because that's like you need to know all the relative position within the different time frames, because sometimes this is like playing a chess, guys, right? This is like playing a chess. When you're forecasting, you are trying to forecast the opponent's move. So when you're playing a chess against someone, let me tell you, is there only one way that the opponent can do against you? No way, right? There are many different ways that the opponent can make a move against you, right? You in your best informed decision at that particular moment think that your opponent is going to do this, but that doesn't mean that's the only way your opponent can do it. So in the same way, in the forecasting, right, this is not the only way that can happen. It's not the only way. So that's why you need to understand, and then we're going to talk about, I mean, that will go to the risk management, which is outside the scope. But what I'm trying to do is this. It's not enough for you only to look at the 1 hour time frame and think this is it, this is the only way, and therefore I don't need to know anything else. In order for you to be able to trade the best way, right, you need to know the relative position of the instrument that you're trading in the bigger picture, right? You cannot just look at one specific time frame and then that's it, I'm trading based on that. Because let's say sometimes like this, guys, sometimes there is a situation in which in the 1 hour is calling for another high like this, and you think it's bullish, but then in the 4 hour it turns out to be, let's say, like this and then like this. Then the question is it really bullish or bearish, right? Follow me for a second. Let's say the 1 hour is calling another leg higher, and you just look at the 1 hour, you think it is bullish because the 1 hour is this, like this. But then after you look at the 4-hour, you find out, well, that seems to be only one last move, which may or may not happen. Like I said, it's like playing a chess. You always think about it may or may not happen. That's your best forecast, but it may not happen. Now, knowing the relative position is important, because then you know, okay, well, if it's actually not really that bullish. After you look at the higher time frame, you figure out as long as it stays below here, actually we're expecting it to turn lower, so it's not really bullish if that's the case, right? So then it gives you more information, right? When you know the relative position, then if you look at the 1 hour, then you think, maybe I should not buy it because that's too risky for me. I am just trying to catch the last leg, when in fact the higher degree is actually expecting it to turn lower as far as it stays below here, right? So sometimes looking at one time frame is not enough. Okay guys, let's go quickly here. Now this is the basic pattern in Elliott Wave, 5 waves pattern. Everybody that has some basic knowledge of Elliott Wave knows it, right? So Elliott Wave, you only have, let me summarize this quickly. You only have 2 types. You have motive wave, which is 5 waves, and you have corrective wave, which is 3 waves. Alright, so you only 2 types, either motive or corrective. Now within the motive, you got impulse. Everybody probably is familiar with impulse if you know some basic knowledge. But then there are other types of 5 waves called diagonal. We will talk about that also. So you have 2 different types of motive waves. One is impulse, another one is a diagonal. In the corrective, we got a lot of different types. Well, not really a lot. The most important one is a zigzag, and then a flat, and then what we call triangle, right? Triangle is not really that common. Okay, it's not really that common, I would say. Number 4 is a double 3. Now classical Elliott wave theorists like to call it a double zigzag, but a double zigzag is actually a specific type of a double 3. We're gonna talk about it. And then there's a triple 3, but that's too much. I think for you guys, honestly speaking, practically, if you guys want to trade well, I think in my experience, right, I think most of the time you need to understand this, and this. If you understand these 3, I think you're good. You're good enough. If you understand these 3 well, you are good enough. Just practical tips, basically. All right. So not really too much thing for you guys to memorize. You can even memorize it now. 2 types: motive, which is 5 waves, and corrective, which is 3 waves. Right? Motive has 2 different versions: impulse and diagonal. Corrective has 3 different, 4: zigzag, flat, and a double 3. Okay. So now going back here. So this is what we call a motive wave on the left side. So from this low to this high is what we call a motive wave. So motive wave, if you guys remember, it is a 5 waves, right? It is a 5 waves. Can someone see which 5 waves is it? Now look at this. We got many different degrees of Elliott wave. Remember, this are the different degrees. Different color corresponds to different degrees. Now from this low to this high, motive wave, it is an impulse, the impulsive type. You got this 5 in the red. Everybody see it? 5. You got 1 in red, 2 in red, 3 and 4. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Everybody can see it? We got 5 waves, right? Motive wave, 5 waves. Now in the motive wave, the subdivision of wave 1 needs to be also in 5 waves. The subdivision, remember, we can cut different, each wave you can always break it down to smaller and smaller wave, right? Now remember, this one in red, if you go back to this chart here, that one is a minor degree. Look, one in red color, that's a minor degree. Okay, everybody can see it, right? One in red color is minor degree. Now, when you cut this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into the subdivision, which degree should it be? When you are talking about the subdivision of 1 in red, which is minor degree, which degree do you think it should be when we are talking about the subdivision of a minor degree? You want to cut that minor degree wave, right? So it has to be always, the subdivision has to be always, like Ruben says, Ewa says, it has to be always one lower degree, right? One lower degree than whatever you want to cut. So let's say if you see this as a wave 1, then the subdivision has to be minute degree, right? So that's using the black double parenthesis, and that's why you see black double parenthesis here, right? So wave 1 is subdivided into another 5 waves. Wave 3 also subdivides into another 5 waves. Wave 5 subdivides into another 5 waves. By the way, that's the rule in the Elliott wave in the impulse. Wave 1, 3, and 5 always subdivides into another 5 waves of a lower degree. Okay? So everybody understand, right? So then in the wave 2 and the wave 4, you can see it subdivides into how many waves, guys? It subdivides into 3 waves. 1, 2, 3, labeled as an ABC, right? So 1, 3, and 5 always subdivides in 5 waves, and then 2 and 4 always subdivides in 3 waves, right? And then after we finish all this entire 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you can see what can you see here? You see a 1 in blue. So tell me, what is that 1 in blue mean, guys? Anybody knows? That's a wave 1, right? That's a wave 1 in a higher degree. So if you go back here, that's intermediate, right? Intermediate. So that means this wave 1 in blue subdivide into 5 waves in the lower degree. Remember, the rule is wave 1 always subdivide in 5 waves. Right? That's why wave 1 in blue, which is the intermediate degree, like Ewa said, subdivides into a 5 waves in a minor degree. And each wave 1, 3, and 5 in the minor degree also subdivides into 5 waves of a minute degree. Okay, guys? So then you got this wave 2 in blue, which also subdivides into, now this wave 2 in blue is called corrective wave. In this case, it's a zigzag, is an ABC. Okay, and you can see right here that you got A, B, and C in the minor degree, right? In the minor degree, which ends wave 2 of an intermediate degree, which is one higher degree. Now remember, wave 2 needs to be subdivided into 3 waves, right? Just like this wave 2 here also subdivides into 3 waves of the lower degree, right? This wave 2 in blue also subdivides into 3 waves technically, which is your A, B, and C. So don't get confused with this black label, guys. When you want to figure out, okay, what is this wave 2 is, you need to always look at the one lower degree than this wave 2. You guys need to follow me, guys. If you guys want to know the subdivision of a specific label or specific move, you always need to find out from the chart the one lower degree than whatever it is. So for example, this is wave 2. This entire move from wave 1 to this low is wave 2 in blue, which is intermediate. So what is that subdivision of this wave 2? You go one lower degree, which is the minor A, B, C. Now you know, okay, the minor degree is red color, right? That's why you say A, B, C, 3 waves. 3 waves, right? So what about this black thing then? What is this? What is this 1, 2, 3, 4 A, B, C, 1? What is that? That is the subdivision of your wave A, right? That is your subdivision of the wave A. So that means that wave A subdivides into 5 waves in a lower degree, which is minute, like Ewa said. and this wave B subdivides into 3 waves, A, B, C, and then this wave C subdivides into 5 waves. So this is just to give you understanding of how you interpret a chart. We have not even talked about rules and so on. This is just to give you how do you interpret the charts. When you see the chart, how can you know what is the subdivision and all this thing? You always look back into the different degrees. Check this. I don't know why you type in one letter every time. I mean, if you do that, I cannot see anybody else's question. Please don't type that, my friend. Okay. All right. So so that's this is the 5 ways pattern, which is the typical example that people use. All right. Now let's move on. This is the Fibonacci ratios. This is important, guys, for you when you're trying to forecast the target, right? The target. So where is it gonna go, that wave and so on? Use the Fibonacci ratio. You got 2 different types of Fibonacci ratio. One is called extension, another one is called retracement. All right, extension is we're gonna talk about this later on, but for now, I think you know, I will just skip it for now, I guess. Retracement, I think, is most of you are familiar with it. This is 38.2%, 61.8%, all those retracement. So how many of you guys are familiar with Fibonacci? I think many of you, if you've been trading for a while, you should know a little bit about Fibonacci, right? Fibonacci retracement, things like that. So this is going to be very important combined together with Elliott Wave, because this is going to let you guys know the target and all those things. All right, so you use this in combination with Elliott Wave later on, but for now I'll just let you guys know this is the typical Fibonacci ratio that we are using. All right, so now let's take a look here with the first one. Remember, motive wave, only 2 types, right? Motive, corrective. Motive is 5 waves, and now we are talking about motive wave and specifically impulse. Remember, motive wave, 5 waves, has 2 different types, impulse and diagonal, right? So now we are talking about impulse. Impulse is, we saw it before, it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these are the rules. Impulse wave subdivide into 5 ways. This 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in red. That's what it means by impulse wave. All right. Now, with 1, 3, and 5, subwaves are themselves impulse. Look, this with 1 subdivide into 5 waves itself. With 3 is also 5 waves. With 5 is also 5 waves, right? So themselves is also subdivide into 5 waves. This one is, I think, is more accurate to be called 5 waves, because this could be a diagonal, this could be a diagonal. So I think it's better to say with 1, 3, and 5, subwaves are subdivided in 5 waves themselves. Okay, and then with 2, which is this 2 in the red here, cannot retrace more than the beginning of wave 1. So that makes sense, right? I mean, if this wave 2 break below this low, then it's no longer 1, 2, right? Everybody understand? So it doesn't make sense that this wave 2 breaks more than the beginning of wave 1 and then you call it 1 and 2, right? So that doesn't make sense. So wave 2 cannot retrace more than, it cannot break below the beginning of wave 1. That's what it means. Wave 3 cannot be in the shortest wave. So you see this wave 3 here, the red degree, this wave cannot be in the shortest wave. In fact, when you are talking about impulse, wave 3 usually is the longest and the strongest wave. In terms of the Fibonacci ratio, which, like I said, is important, usually wave 3 is at least 161.8% Fibonacci extension of the wave 1. Meaning, you measure the length of the wave 1, and then you project it starting from the wave 2. This wave 3 usually at least is going to be 1.618 of the wave 1. Right? So more than more than just 1.5. So 1.618 of the wave 1. So that's usually wave 3. Usually it's the strongest and the longest, but it doesn't have to. Sometimes it's not the longest and the strongest, but the rule says it cannot be in the shortest wave. So this is really the most important thing, is wave 3 cannot be in the shortest wave. Wave 4 cannot overlap with wave 1. This wave 4 in red here, it cannot overlap with wave 1. Meaning when we pull back in the wave 4, this pullback cannot be so deep that it touches or goes into the territory of the wave 1. That's what it means, cannot overlap. Okay, In fact, in our company EWF, we have another sort of additional rule that basically protects us. We say that wave 4, when it goes more than 50% retracement of the wave 3, more often than not, that's no longer a wave 4 because that's too deep. Sometimes it does not overlap with the wave 1, but then if it goes so deep that it goes more than 50% of the wave 3, you start thinking that's not a 5 waves. Maybe it's only 3 waves. Because then the pullback is too deep. If you really want to get an impulse, that wave 4 should not be too deep, the pullback. Okay, this is the classical rule, is cannot overlap with the wave 1. Alright, now wave 5 needs to come with momentum divergence, right? Guys, because I need to go a little bit fast, so sometimes I may not be able to answer all your questions. Probably it's best to save your question, or I maybe just answer 1 or 2, right? Because otherwise it's too much, right? Because we have a lot of people today joining us here as well. Now look, wave 5 cannot needs to come with momentum divergence. So if you use any kind of momentum indicator like RSI, relative strength index, or the MACD, right, moving average, convergence, divergence, and so on, you will see a momentum divergence. Sometimes people call it bullish divergence or bearish divergence, right? A bearish divergence is when the price makes a new high, just like in the case of wave 5 here, makes a new high compared to the wave 3. But when you look at the momentum, which is basically your RSI indicator or your MACD indicator or your stochastic indicator, that RSI, that momentum indicator, does not make a new high. So the price makes a higher high in price, right? It makes a high high, but the momentum makes a lower high. If that makes sense, the momentum makes a lower high. So that's what it means by momentum divergence. All right. RSI divergence, yeah, that works. RSI divergence is also momentum divergence. RSI is one form of momentum, Wolfgang. Okay. Now, in terms of the Fibonacci relationship, wave 2 is usually 61.8%, or all the way to 85.4% of wave 1. So, like I said, it cannot break more than the beginning. So it can be usually, typically, I would say most of the time, let's say 80 to 90% is this 50 to 61.8%. Okay, retracement wise. So you got this wave 1, so the wave 2 will retrace 80% of the time, between 50% to 61.8% of the wave 1. Okay, now wave 3 is typically the longest and the strongest, right? Typically is around 161.8, but it can even be longer than that. It can be 200%, 261.8, 323, and so on, right? So usually, like I said, impulse, wave 3 is the longest and the strongest. Wave 4 typically is between, I would say 80 to 90% of the time is between 23.6 to 38.2% of the wave 3, right? So you have the wave 3, and the wave 4 is around 23.6 to 38.2, but no more than 50%. This is the rule that we have in our company. Because when it goes to 50%, more than 50%, that pullback is too deep, and then you start thinking, okay, it's no longer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe this is an ABC, 3 waves. Because remember, you are trying to forecast the future, right? Let's say we do not know if it's gonna make a wave 5 or not. Let's say we do not know that yet. All we have so far is 1, 2, and 3. Now we're trying to forecast: are we gonna do 4 and 5, or maybe we don't do a 5? So how do you know that? Well, if the pullback starts to get too deep, 50%, more than 50% of this, you start thinking, okay, I cannot label this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So regardless whether this is subdivision is 5 waves here, 5 waves here, well, there is another structure which has also 5 waves here, 5 waves here, which is called an ABC zigzag. So maybe instead of labeling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I should label it as an ABC. That's why I think this rule is very important for you to forecast the future, right? To forecast the future. Everybody is great waver if they just look at completed move and they label the completed move, right? Now, the measure whether you're good or not as a waver is when you're trying to forecast the future, not what has happened. Not what has happened, right? So when you're in the moment, when you're trying to forecast right now and trying to forecast the future, you always got a couple of different possibilities. Okay, should I label this 1, 2, 3? Should I label this A, B, C? Now, how do you know all those things? You need to sort of understand this rule here, right? So with 4, cannot be more than 50%, all right? And then with 5 usually is equal to the with 1. This is with 5 can be measured in many couple of different ways. It can be equal to with 1. It can be 61.8% of with 1 to 3. So meaning you measure the entire move from the beginning of with 1 to with 3. So this is all your move to up until with 3, and then you project it starting from the with 4, 61.8% of this thing. So you measure this thing, and then 61.8% of that is going to be in the target for with 5. So with 5 can be measured in 3 different ways. Equal to with 1 is one way, another way 61.8% of with 1 to 3, and then yet another way is 123.6% to 161.1% of with 4. So this is what we call external retracement. So you measure this with 4, which is this one, and then 123.6, 161.8%. So meaning, think about it this way. The simplest way to think about it is this way. You have this with 4, and then if it is retracing fully 100%, that will mean it goes back to the beginning of the wave 4, right? Fully retracing 100%. Now 123.6 means it will go to the beginning, and then even more than that, right? More than that, around 23.6% more than this thing. That's what it means by external retracement, right? That's what it means by external retracement. So with 5, then the target from the wave 5 can also be measured that way. So you measure this with 4, and then 123.6% external retracement of this with 4 can be in the target for wave 5. So between 123.6 and 161.8% of the wave 4. Alright, so this is important because when you're trying to forecast, when you're trading it, you want to see where can I take my profit, right? Where can I close my position? Then you use all this relationship in the Fibonacci to help you. Okay, so that's an impulse. Like I said, there are two different types of motive wave. One is an impulse. Another one is well, this one impulse with extension. I think we probably don't need to discuss this. All it does here, this is not really too different than what we are talking about. Normally, the most common thing that happens in the market is you got the strongest and the longest within the wave 3. In other words, when you look at the chart, you can see it clearly subdivides into 5 waves, whereas the 1 and 5 may be not as clearly subdivided like this. So you can see, because this is the longest one, so typically you can also see the 5-way subdivision clearest compared to the shorter one. So the clearest subdivision here can be labeled clearly using one lower degree, which is, if this is minor, this is minute degree, this black color here. And so this is the most common one. It's called the third wave extension. In the commodities, they say a lot of times you have a 5th wave extension in the commodities. So within the wave 5, you got the longest wave in the wave 5, right? Remember, the rule is wave 3 cannot be in the shortest wave. That's the rule in the impulse. So in this case, as long as wave 3 is longer than wave 1, that's okay. You don't violate the rule, right? This wave 5 can be in the longest one, especially in the commodities market, but as long as wave 3 is not the shortest wave, that's okay. Now in this case, this is the rarest of all. This is not really this is not really common. This is when you see extension clearly visible in the wave 1. So wave 1 can be in the longest one. That is okay. As far as wave 3 is longer than wave 5, you don't violate the rules. So 3 different types. I mean, it depends on where you got the extension, within wave 3 or within wave 1, within wave 5. I would say 80% of the time within the wave 3. Alright, within the wave 3 is the longest and the strongest wave with the 5 waves subdivision. Alright. Now we got another type called diagonal. Like I said, 5 waves, but it is a diagonal. So what is a diagonal? Well, diagonal is pretty simple. Diagonal, you guys know a wedge, what a wedge is? A wedge looks like this, right? This is what looks like a wedge. Now, diagonal is always looking like a wedge, like this. All right? It's kind of a converging, right? So you got this one is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 waves, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you can see the subdivision of the wave 1. If you guys recall, in an impulse, always needs to be another 5 waves, right? 1, 3, and 5 needs to subdivide into another 5 waves. So this wave 1 here subdivide into 5 waves, but you notice here the subdivision here. Now, what do you see here that is telling you it is not an impulse? There is something happening here that tells you this cannot be an impulse. This thing here. Number one, it looks like it is converging. Number one, overlapping. Correct. AWA is good. So this wave 4 overlaps with this wave 1. You notice here? It overlaps. I need, probably this is not very clear, but it can overlap into the price territory of wave 1. So you still get the same subdivision, 5 waves in the wave 1, 5 waves wave 3, 5 waves in the wave 5, right? 3 waves in the wave 2, 3 waves in the wave 4. But the difference is wave 4 overlap with the wave 1, and then it looks like a wedge. It converge, right? So a diagonal looks like that. So a diagonal can happen within the wave 1. Within the wave 1, remember, everything needs to subdivide into smaller wave, right? So a diagonal can only happen, you can have an overlapping 1 and 4. So a lot of people sometimes get confused. Why is wave 1 and 4 overlap? You're violating the rule. No, you need to understand, okay, what is this wave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Where is that fit in the overall structure? Now, if that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fits in within the wave 1 of a higher degree, then that's okay. That means it's a diagonal. Okay? That means it's a diagonal. A diagonal can happen within the wave 1 or within the wave 5. If it happens within the wave 1, it's called a leading diagonal. If it happens within the wave 5, it's called an ending diagonal. A diagonal also can happen in an ABC. Now, we haven't talked about ABC, which is zigzag, but zigzag is a 5-3-5. Zigzag is a 5-3-5 structure here. Okay, it is a 5-3-5. So if you go back here, this A should be subdivided into 5 waves. This C, because it's a 5, and then this is 3, and this is 5. Remember this one? You guys remember this one? A, B, C. That's a zigzag. It's a 5, 3, 5. Alright? 5-3-5 is a zigzag. So it's a 5-3-5 here. So going back to my slides, so you can see this A needs to be subdivided into 5 waves. Now the subdivision of the A can be an impulse. Impulse, remember, no overlapping with 1 and 4. Strongest usually is with 3 on all those rules. Not converging, not like a wedge. That's impulse. Or the wave A can be also a diagonal. If it is a diagonal, then it will have an overlap with 1 and 4, right? And then looking like a wedge. Now again, when you see an overlap, don't say, why is it overlapping? You're violating the rule. Don't say that yet. You need to understand, where is it happening? If it happens within wave A or wave 1, then you know, okay, it's a diagonal. It is a diagonal, okay? So it's a special type of motive wave. It looks like a wedge, right? And then characterized by overlapping with 1 and 4, right? Each wave, each sub-wave can be subdivided into 5-3-5-3-5 or 3-3-3-3. In other words, this wave 1 here can even subdivide into 3 waves. So this can be a 3-3-3-3-3. Instead of 5-3-5-3-5, it can be a 3-3-3-3-3. So it can be 3-3-3, and you can still label it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then again, you will say, you violate the rules. How come wave 1 subdivides into 3 waves? Well, you need to understand more about Elliott wave. Where is it happening? Is it converging? Is it overlapping with 1 and 4? If the answer is yes to all, and this is all 3, you know that's a diagonal, right? So you need to learn more before you judge whether somebody violates the rule or not, because a lot of times when we got chart like that, some people who do not know in details, in deep, they think, oh, it's violating, it's not violating it. If it is a diagonal, that can happen. All right, it doesn't matter. Correct. In diagonal, 1 and 4 should overlap actually, because it's converging. All right, so let's move on. I think we're gonna get over time a little bit. I think that's fine. I just want to make sure I cover all the basic structures. And probably it's gonna be 15 to 20 minutes if that's okay for you guys. All right. Ending diagonal is it happens within the wave 5, but the same kind of characteristic, overlapping 4 in 1 and then looking like a wedge, converging like this. It can happen within wave 5, it can happen within wave C. Remember, ABC zigzag is a 5-3-5, so this C leg, it can be a 5 waves impulse, or it can be a 5 waves diagonal. So in this case, we show you an example in which the subdivision of this wave 1 is in 3 waves. 3 waves here, 3 waves, 3 waves, right? So you can see 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, converging, overlapping 4 and 1 within wave 5, a diagonal. Or in the C leg of a zigzag, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, everything is in 3, overlapping 4 and 1, converging like a wedge, is a diagonal. All right, so we pretty much finished the motive wave now, which is basically 2 types, an impulse or a diagonal. Now we're gonna go to the corrective wave. I'm gonna do it pretty fast, hopefully. This is a zigzag. We talked about it before. It is an ABC, right? It is an ABC. It's a 3 waves, and then A subdivides into 5 waves in the lower degree, B subdivides into 3, C subdivides into another 5 waves of a lower degree. Okay, so it's labeled as ABC. Subdivision of wave A and C are either an impulse, like this is an impulse because no overlapping and everything looks clean. It can be an impulse, or it can be a diagonal. We saw it before, in which wave A can be a diagonal, converging, overlapping, right? C also can be a diagonal as long as it's 5 waves. Wave B can be any corrective structure. Now this is interesting. What does it mean? Now remember, when we talk about corrective structure, we're saying that corrective structure is 3 waves, right? But 3 waves can be, if you guys recall, it can be these different types: zigzag, flat, triangle, double, 3, right? So going back here, this is showing just a simple ABC. So call this another zigzag. You can call this B subdivision is a 3-wave zigzag, another ABC zigzag in the lower degree. But technically speaking, it can be any corrective structure. So if you go back again to the idea how many corrective structures are there, then you can actually that means the subdivision can be a zigzag, can be a flat, it can be a double, 3 as well. So that's what it means. In this case, example is the most simple one. Just call it a zigzag here. All right, so you got a 5 zigzag 3 waves in the B, and then another 5 waves impulse. So this is impulse, zigzag, impulse, 5, 3, 5. All right. Fibonacci relationship with B cannot be more than the beginning of wave A. Usually it's 50, 61.8%, 76.4% of wave A. With C, usually is now this is the most typical, 80 to 90% of the time is 100% to 123.6% of wave A. So with C, usually is around 100% to 123.6% of the wave A. That's what we call equality or equal leg. We use it so often in our servers, okay? When we are forecasting target for with C or with Y, that's what we use a lot. 100% to 123.6%, we call it equal leg. Now if wave C is long, if wave C getting too long, 161.8% of wave A, it can become an impulse. Now remember, impulse, before we talk about impulse, right? Impulse, and what is the difference between an impulse and a zigzag, guys? Remember this, let's say you have a 5 waves here, right? You can count this as a 5 wave. Let's say this is a 5 waves impulse, and then you got a bounce, all right, and then you got another 5 waves down, right? Now my question to you guys is, you are you are a waver and you want to label. Okay, so how am I supposed to label this? I got 5 waves, I got a correction, I got another 5 waves, right? What am I supposed to label this? What am I supposed to label this? What am I supposed to label this? Now this can either be, it can be a wave 1, or it can be a wave A. It can be a wave 2, or it can be a wave B. This can be a wave 3, or it can be a wave C, right? Okay, guys. So how do you know if I label this? Should I label this 1, 2, 3, or should I label this ABC? Because if I label it as a 1, 2, 3, I'm expecting a 4 and a 5. But if I'm expecting an ABC, I don't expect any with 4 and 5. Maybe this can go higher from here and break this. If this is only correction in a bullish market, then after this ABC correction, I can go to new high, right? I can go to new high. So how am I supposed to know? Because wave 1 is 5 waves, wave A is also 5 waves, wave 3 is 5 waves, wave C is also 5 waves, right? That's why you go here. If wave C, which is your third swing, is so long and so strong, okay, then it can become an impulse instead of an ABC. Because if it's an ABC zigzag, the C needs to be what? Between 100% to 123.6% most of the time. Okay, beyond or at, even at 161.8%, I will be careful. If it reaches 1.618, then you got a case in which you got 3 swings, right? You got a 3 swings, and you got a 5 wave subdivision here, 5 wave subdivision there, and then you got the third swing too strong, too long compared to the first swing. Then okay, you start thinking, okay, this is probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But if the C leg is not really too strong and too long, it's only equal leg to the first leg, first swing, then okay, that could be your ABC. Everybody understand? You got it, guys, right? Because the subdivision is the same between 1 and 3 and A and C. Alright? Let's move on. Now we talk about the flats. Right? We talk about flats. So we finished talking about zigzag. Now we're gonna talk about flats. Alright? Now flats. 3 different types. Alright? Regular flat, expanded flat, and running flat. Okay? Now this is also labeled as an ABC, same as the zigzag. Zigzag, remember, is also labeled as an ABC. This one, flat, is also labeled as an ABC. Now the difference is, if you look at the subdivision of this flat, you can see the A subdivides into 3 waves, right? Instead of WXY, I should have labeled this as ABC. Maybe it's easier for you guys. ABC, ABC, okay? It's the same, alright? So 3 waves here, 3 waves here, and then 5 waves here. 3 waves, 3 waves, 5 waves, 3 waves, 3 waves, 5 waves. The difference is this, guys, right? So let me go back to my this one. So flat is a 3, 3, 5. That's a flat, okay? It's a 3, 3, 5. All right. Now going back here, so you got 3, 3, 5. If a zigzag, it's a 5, 3, 5, right? Now in a flat, the B is almost breaking the beginning of the A. This one is almost like 100% retest of the whole A. Okay, in the expanded flat, the B actually breaks above or breaks above or below the beginning of wave A, right? It can, I mean, a flat can be another way also. This is called, you know, like a in a bullish market or bearish market. Now this one, there is another flat which is like this. Let me show you. It's the same idea. I can call three waves like this: 1, 2, 3. And then break like this. So this is your wave A, and this is your wave B, and then you got 5 waves in the C, right? That's also expanded flat, same thing. So this one and this one is the same. It's just in a bullish market or bearish market, right? In this case, you got 3 ways down, and the other example I showed you before is a 3 ways up, and then the B breaks above, and then in the example I show you, the B breaks below. It's the same, right? So it's just a bullish or bearish market. So it's a 3, and then the B breaks above the beginning of the A, and then you got a C leg that breaks more than the A. So in this other case, you got a C leg that breaks above the A. That's also a flat, expanded flat. So the difference between regular, expanded, and running is just in the regular, the B does not break, almost retest, almost 100% full retest. In the expanded, the B breaks and the C also breaks. In the running flat, the B breaks the beginning, but the C does not break the end of the wave A, or doesn't break the A itself. So that's only just a minor kind of differences. Okay. Yeah, I'm recording this anyway, Wolfgang, so after the processing, I'm gonna post it so you can watch it over and over again, alright? If you need to, of course. Alright, so that's the 3 different types of flats. And then let's take a look here. This is the regular flat. Again, like I said, it's a 3 waves, and then another 3 waves. The B almost retests the beginning of the A, and then you got a 5 waves in C. So it is a 3 waves, which is a corrective structure, labeled as an ABC, and the subdivision of NP is in 3 waves, and then the C is in 5 waves, and then the B terminates near the start of the wave A. Wave C generally terminates slightly beyond the end of wave A. Wave C must have momentum divergence. All right. The relationship with B is almost 100% of the wave A, and then with C, normally it's between 100% to 161.8% of this thing here. So this is usually 100 to 161.8% of the wave A. Alright, so that's the regular flat. Here we got expanded flat. The B breaks above the A, beginning of A. That's the difference between the expanded and the regular. This B does not break, this one breaks. And then the C is also very long, 5 ways, breaks more than A. So the C usually is around 123.6 to 161.8. And then the B usually slightly break above it, around 123.6% of this wave A. Other than that, the role are the same. It's just a slight differences here in terms of where the B and the C is going to be. Okay. Now I'm not sure if I have an example for you. Let me check, because I got only this Indian rupee here. Let me check if I can see any flat somewhere here. Yeah, this one, for example, is an expanded flat. You can see from here. You got A, you got B, which breaks the beginning of the A, and then you got C. Now this is an example of, anybody remembers the 3 different flats that we're talking about? What is this type of flats here? So you got a B breaking the beginning of A, and then the C does not break more than the A. We got 3 types, right? Regular, expanded, and running flat. Which one are out of the 3 is that thing? Now first of all, when you see ABC here, how do I know this is not a zigzag? It's very simple. It is not a zigzag. Definitely it's not a zigzag. A zigzag, the B cannot even break the beginning of the A, right? Zigzag has to be like this. Now this one is, think about a flat as a messy consolidation. That's what I'm I think of a flat as a messy consolidation. All right. Now, expanded flat, the C needs to break above, Wolfgang. So Eva is correct. This is an example of a running flat in which you have a B breaking this, but the C fails to break the A, right? That's a running flat. You got a B breaking this beginning, but the C fails to break more than the A. That's a running flat. Okay, so yeah, so we got an example there in the INR in the daily. Let me check if I can find anything else in the 4 hour, 1 hour to give you guys some ideas. Now, anybody, I mean, this one, I think this one can be labeled as either way, I guess. I mean, this one can be, I guess this can be a zigzag too, because this one looks like a, does it look like a 5 waves? Does it look like a impulse to you guys here? Or does it look like a 3 waves here? Look at this A here in the red. It looks like an impulse, right? It looks like an impulse. So this can, I guess, can be labeled as a zigzag over there. Let me see. I want to give a clear cut sort of example that is unmistakable type of flat. I couldn't find it so far. All right. So, well, this one is another example of a running flat again. You got a very clear 3 waves, 1, 2, 3. A, you got a break below that previous or below the beginning of A, and then you got a C that fails to break more than the A. This is in the 1 hour chart. We got another running flat here. Okay. So think about flat as a messy consolidation. Think about it. This is nothing more than a consolidation, actually, right? We have a big range in which it's kind of breaking all over the place. That's what a flat is, basically, right? It's a very messy consolidation. That's what a flat is. All right. So moving on, triangle. We'll not talk about it too much, but it's not really that common, honestly speaking. I mean, and then normally you don't forecast a triangle when you only got with A. You see, you can only forecast a triangle when you got enough back and forth movement that you know, okay, it's in a sideways kind of triangle range. So normally you will only be able to see triangle when it is already maybe forming A, B, C, and then, you know, okay, you start thinking, okay, maybe this is a triangle. But you don't start forecasting a triangle when you only got a 1, 2, 3, and then you suddenly start forecasting a triangle. You don't. So typically, it's not really something you want to trade anyway, because it's a consolidation. You only want to trade the trend, but not in the consolidation. Okay. So you got a ascending triangle in which you got this is in the bullish market. You got a horizontal kind of upper line, and then a higher low, right? In the descending triangle, you have a horizontal lower line, and then descending or lower high. Symmetrical triangle is when it's converging like this, and then expanding triangle is what people call a megaphone pattern. So it's like a megaphone like this. All right, so 4 different types of triangle. And then lastly, of a symmetrical triangle usually happens in the wave 4, in a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 impulse, right? Wave 4 can be any corrective structure. So it can be a triangle, it can be an ABC flat, it can be an ABC zigzag, or it can be a double zigzag or double 3. So typically wave 2 and wave 4 in an impulse structure, they can be any corrective structure. The example that you see here before is a simplified version. This is really a simplified version. We are assuming this is a zigzag here, this is a zigzag. But in reality, this can be a flat. Now, if this is a flat, the B can break above the A. The B can break above the beginning of A. So you can have an A, B, C like this. That's an expanded flat. So in reality, this wave 2, the subdivision can be a zigzag, can be a flat, can be it cannot be a triangle. It can be zigzag, flat, or double zigzag. In the wave 4, it can be a it can be any corrective pattern. It can be a zigzag, flat, triangle, double zigzag. So, but in the example, I cannot give you all those different structures, right? So usually this is the sort of the standard way to show you guys what a wave 2 should be like. This is 3 waves, but in reality it can be any corrective structure. But remember, corrective structure is not really that many either, right? It's only zigzag, flat, triangle, and double zigzag. That's it. I mean, and then the most important one out of those things anyway is only 3: zigzag, flat, and double 3. That's it. Only 3 things that you need to get most familiar with in Elliott wave. Now, alright, so now last one is double 3. This is also extremely important. Now, what is a double 3? Double 3 is a lot of people get confused over double 3. Double 3 is when you have 2 corrective structures being combined together. Okay, you have 2 corrective Elliott wave structures. So in this case, you got on the left side, you got a flat structure, right? This is A, B, C. Anybody remembers what kind of flat is this? Out of regular, expanded, or running flat? Anybody remembers? Still remembers? If I label it like this, expanded, AY is correct. So on the left side, you got an expanded flat. On the right side, which is from here to here, you got a zigzag, right? A 5, 3, 5 is a normal zigzag. So you have a flat on the left side, you have a zigzag on the right side, and you combine them together. You combine these 2 different Elliott wave corrective structures together into one, then you got what you call a double 3. Right? Double 3. So what does it, why is it called double 3 anyway? Because this is a 3. ABC is a 3 ways, right? It's a flat, it's a 3 ways. ABC is a 3. This one zigzag is also a 3. It's also an ABC. So you have 2 3s combined together. It's a double 3. It's a double 3. Right? I can talk forever, guys. To be honest, this topic is, if you guys want to know more or interested to know more, you can always check our service, 14 days free trial, and also we got paid education as well and things like that. But technically we can talk forever on this topic because I can go as deep as I need to on all these things, but we won't have enough time because it's really just an introduction to the basic structures, unfortunately. But I hope it helps a little bit. All right, now double 3 is nothing more than 2 corrective structures. But remember, when we're talking about 2 corrective structures, I'm not just talking about any, there are only limited corrective structures that you need to memorize. Like I said, you just need to understand a flat, a zigzag, and a double 3. Most of the time, those cover like 90% of corrective structures anyway, right? Zigzag, flat, double 3. That's it. That's all you need, all right? Zigzag, flat, double 3. Now, in this case, a double 3 is a combination of any corrective structure on the left side and any corrective structure on the right, on the left side and the right side, combined together, and then you put a label of a WXY. That's what a double 3 is. The label is WXY, but the W is 3 waves, the Y is also 3 waves. So if I go back to this, if I can find it, to this one again, and I don't know why this is so messy now. Where did I put it? That's really strange. I thought I put it oh, here we go. Remember this? Double 3 is, okay, forget about triangle. This is gonna cover you 90% of Elliott wave. Okay, just memorize this. Zigzag is 535, flat is 335, double 3 is 333. Okay, so you guys need to memorize this. Not really too many to memorize, guys. You can memorize it, right? Not really too many to memorize. So back to here. So in this case, you got a flat on the left side, which is 3 waves. You got a zigzag on the right side, which is also 3 waves. Now, it can be a zigzag on the left side and a zigzag on the right side also, right? It can be both a zigzag. Everybody follow me so far? This could be a simple ABC like this one, 5, 3, 5. I just need to copy and paste this to the left side. Then I get a zigzag here and I get a zigzag there. And that's called WXY. Now, that is a specific type of a double 3 that is called a double zigzag. So what is a double zigzag? Now, most people call WXY as double zigzag, but I don't call WXY as double zigzag. Double zigzag is only a specific form of a WXY in which the left side is a zigzag, the right side is a zigzag. Then you can call it double zigzag or 2 zigzag. But then if the left side is not a zigzag, like in this case it's a flat, then you don't call it double zigzag. You call it a double 3. Everybody understand? So a double zigzag is just one specific type in which both legs are zigzags. Now, like I said, how many corrective patterns, guys, that you need to memorize? Tell me again. The 3 most common corrective structures in Elliott Wave. Yep, flat. What else? Flat, zigzag, and one more. Yep, flat, zigzag, and then what? Double 3. Correct. Flat, zigzag, and double 3. That means what, guys? That means within this W here, it can be itself another double 3. Because it can be any corrective structure, and you know there are 3 corrective structures, the most common one, flat, zigzag, and a double 3. So within this one, it can be a WXY as well in a lower degree. You guys understand what I mean? So it's a double 3 within a double 3. It's getting pretty complicated, but it's a double 3 within a double 3. The left side can be itself another double 3. The right side itself can be a double 3. So this can be a WXY itself. So let me see if I can, oops, hold on. I do not have that slide, but this could be a WXY, this could be a WXY. Now remember though, a WXY, guys, let me go back to this very quickly here. A WXY actually is very similar to ABC, guys.